data, information. So it could be any data, information, value, all of that can be transferred between two individuals without the need of any centralized party, right? That is where Bitcoin was born. And it's like quite popular now. Why it is popular, why it is getting value? Because the basic property of a money is people who are transacting should feel the value in it, right? If you are willing to, if you realize the value in it, if I realize the value in it, will be exchanging it, right? It's a medium of exchange, right? So as Bitcoin became more and more popular, as some of the, you would have seen hyperinflation happening across various countries, a lot of countries and people started adopting Bitcoin as a store of value, right? For example, if something goes bad, at least I will have Bitcoin with me who will have good value, right? And that is why you've seen, like in the last 10 years, it has appreciated in value, and on an average basis, one of the best performing asset classes, because the world is now heavily hyper digitally connected. Now in this digitally connected world, and we have seen a lot of money printing happening in the last 1.5 year. Naturally, Bitcoin is now seeing the attention and the respect, right, which it has been demanding from a long time. So a lot of people are now curious to know more about it. So that is how Bitcoin was born and has evolved over the last 10-12 years.
So
Talking about other cryptocurrencies, yes.
So that brings me to the next question. Like, Bitcoin is considered to be unanimous of cryptocurrencies, but for a better understanding, it is not just the only cryptocurrencies. There are a lot of other cryptocurrencies as well. So would you like to throw some light on the umbrella effect of cryptocurrencies being the umbrella, and then there being a lot of other coins and stuff like that?
Absolutely. We can definitely cover that. So we just discussed about what Bitcoin is and how it operates. Now talking about Ethereum, right? The way to understand that is Bitcoin is essentially a sort of if you want to understand, you can understand fiat currency, that is INR, US dollar, euro, right? And Bitcoin is basically falls in the same lines, and you can very well relate to it. It's a medium of exchange, it's a store of value. Now talking about Ethereum, a lot of people understand Bitcoin to theek hai, samajh mein aa gaya, Ethereum kya hai, right? And if we have Bitcoin, why do we need Ethereum, right?
Yes.
You can't have like two different currencies. You can't have INR 1, INR 2, INR 3.
Of course.
You just need one INR which runs in the country. Then what is the need of Ethereum? So to clear this confusion, right? Bitcoin and Ethereum are two totally different sort of digital assets, right? Digital currencies, and the difference, all of them are primarily based on blockchain technology. The fundamental technology is blockchain, but Ethereum is a platform. It's not a money, right? Of course, people can use, there is a asset also linked with it, but Ethereum is a platform. The way you can understand it is like
some people say it's a contract,
a global supercomputer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so smart contract is functionality. So in Ethereum blockchain, you have the functionality of writing smart contracts, right? And smart contracts essentially, so basically in simple words, it's a worldwide supercomputer, right? And you can use that to build, connect and run decentralized applications on top of Ethereum, right? For example, if just like on internet, on Chrome browser, you on internet you run websites, right? The underlying technology like the internet, right? And you run websites on top of that. Similarly, you can, in simple words, you can assume Ethereum is a supercomputer, Ethereum is a platform, and people build applications using blockchain technology on top of Ethereum. So you might have seen ERC20 token, right? So ERC20 token is basically a protocol that people use to build their own tokens. For example, a lot of tokens like BAT, initially a lot of tokens that came were built on top of Ethereum blockchain. And the token and the native token within the Ethereum blockchain is called Ether, which we call as ETH, right? And where is it needed, right? For example, in Bitcoin, we use Bitcoin to send value from one person to another. In Ethereum, the need of having Ethereum is like, for example, whenever you are building an application, you need to use ETH tokens, right? To do any computation. That is the fees that is used by the network, right? As as Ethereum platform gets more and more popularity, more and more adoption, there will be demand also of Ethereum, and the price will go up. So every token in itself has some value. Bitcoin is different, Ethereum is different, IOTA is totally different. Ripple is totally different. Ripple is used for transfer between, Swift, for example, it's used in Swift network. So every token has its different use cases. Some are used for decentralized file sharing, right? We have networks running on currently, which we use to share files with globally. Now there's a version which uses blockchain technology and makes it decentralized. There is a different token for that. So there are, thousands of tokens out there. Every token is trying to solve a specific use case, specific problem, leveraging blockchain technology. And all of these collectively is what we call as cryptocurrencies as a whole. Not everything is a currency, by the way. So that's broad misconception that every token is a currency, which it is not, right? Few are having the properties of currency, few are utility tokens. So that's how it works.
So we would love to understand more about where Mr. Sumit Gupta is investing, which tokens have you bought, and what is it that we should be buying in the near future. But before we come to that question, there's another question that comes to my mind is, why Bitcoin? Every country's got their own rupee, whatever, pound, sterling pound, and euro, and the US dollar, of course, without any doubt. Then what is the need for having Bitcoin when we already have so many currencies already, and then there is a new currency altogether that is Bitcoin?
Okay, great question. So the way I can explain it, in simple words is, so as of now, right now, information across the world is, very easily transferable, right? You do not have any problem if you want to send email from in India to anyone in the US, right? But that is not the same case with money, right? So information, with just making the information flow very seamless across the globe, just imagine how much we have progressed as a society, as a humanity in the last 10 years, right? Everything has become so seamless now, just by making the information freely transferable between countries, between individuals. But that is not the case currently when it comes to money, right? It is still very difficult to send money from India to US, or from US to Africa, or from Africa to New Zealand to South Africa, right? So that is still a problem. Why? Because every country has their own, boundaries, or
And then
the
you
money
need to
movement.
work with exchanges and stuffs like that. Yeah.
There are, and the entire process, of course, people still do that. It's not like it's not possible. You can still do that, but the system is so inefficient right now that it takes days and it costs a lot to transfer value from one country to another, or from one person to another across the globe. I personally feel that we will be far more advanced as a society, right? If we are able to make this entire process, if we are able to make this entire value transfer efficient and instant and cheap. The moment you achieve that, like, the whole finance world globally will be far more advanced, and the rate of innovation happening in the financial world, अगर किसी किसान को लोन नहीं मिल रहा है गांव में, right? All of that, you can start building solutions which will, solve all of these problems. If I want to loan someone money in Africa, and if I understand that the person is doing a good job, I can't do that right now. But by just making the transfer very seamless, I can actually solve hundreds of problems which are not currently solved, because the value transfer between countries is still very problematic. And even if I have the right intent, even if I want to do it, it takes a lot of time, money, energy, and effort for me to do that. Bitcoin, or basically crypto, right? Whether you call it CBDCs, or Bitcoin, or any other currency for that matter, any other crypto for that matter, makes it seamless, right? And earlier, all the challenges where you have to send money from India to someone in US, you can imagine there are hundreds of people who are employed in the system to do that transfer, and every person has a salary. They're working. They're like people like you and me who are running that system, right? With blockchain technology, with Bitcoin network, you don't need any of that. It's just running 24/7 without the need of any individual running and manually doing that. It's a foolproof way where there is no double spend, right? And it has been proven from a long time. I think it just makes the entire value transfer far more efficient, which will make, which will bring a lot of innovations when it comes to financial world. That is the reason why we need this technology.
Yeah, so if I may just interject there, Sumit, you're talking about a very big concept wherein the whole world runs on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and stuff like that. But is it not related? Now, the second question that quickly pops up here is the adoption. We see a lot of countries very eagerly adopting this. Say India is not very keen in adopting it. So say, for instance, if we are seeing government, those who are a little shaky, and the concept that you are sharing now is possible only if there is a widespread adoption throughout the globe about cryptocurrency, right? Or else this thing is not going to work. So would you like to throw some light on the level of adoption that is already there? What do you think, whether countries have the power to ban cryptocurrencies, or do they not have that power? How does that go?
Sure. So adoption is adoption is a mass phenomena, right? Where everyone starts using it on a day-to-day basis, right? I think right now we are in a stage where the infrastructure is being built. For us, for this transfer to happen, right? You don't necessarily need to everyone in the world to adopt it. You just need to build a solid infra which runs the network, right? And maybe if there are two companies who are solving this using crypto, that is also a good value addition, right? That can just start the effect. And then adoption is a gradual phenomena. I think adoption is independent of what happen, right? Adoption is going to happen, right? We have seen that happening in the past, right? When you're talking about adoption as using blockchain technology, I'm fairly certain that in the next 3 to 5 years you will see a lot of applications that we currently interact with will have the element of blockchain somewhere in the picture. It might not be complete because things takes time, right? So it will have blockchain element. For example, the SMSs that you receive, right, will have a blockchain component. The information, the information that you share to someone else, if it is not encrypted, blockchain element can come in and it will make it more secure and encrypted. If you're using a browser, you will use, for example, if you're using a Brave browser, you will have blockchain as an integral part of it, right? So that will happen gradually. For what we are talking about is the money movement. I think that is where government needs to, regulation becomes a very critical part of it. It cannot happen without governments go ahead, and governments also understand the utility of it. Governments also understand the savings that will happen if we are using blockchain technology, if you're using crypto for let's say remittances, right? Now because government is also trying to understand the whole space, it might take some time for the government to come up with a regulatory framework, right? Come up with a regulatory framework which government is also comfortable with. And once the regulatory framework is out there, you will have a lot of companies who are trying to build solutions within those guidelines, and will bring adoption. It's a gradual phenomenon. It will happen over time, and I think it's just a matter of few years, and after that we will start seeing one app, one use case, second use case, third use case, and maybe in the decade or so, most of the applications that we interact with where data is involved, because data is going to be extremely valuable over the time, they will have blockchain integrated as part of their solution.
So if I may draw parallels here from the internet, as we speak about the internet, it has become a part of our daily lives. We cannot think of our lives without internet today. Probably that was a thing which we have, what was a distant dream, or a lot of people made fun of internet when the dot-com burst happened. Say not, it's been not quite some time. It's been just 20 years when people were making it a joke that how is it that an internet company can become bigger than companies like the GM, Ford, and Chevrolet,
right,
and stuff like that. So now it has become an integral part of every single thing that we do from morning to evening. Probably internet is some way or the other attached. Can we say that in a couple of decades from now, cryptos are going to also become the thing, or the one of the most integral part of our lives, if so to say?
See, internet to rahega, right? Internet you will continue to use, and like it's as you rightly mentioned, it's a very integral part of our life. We can't imagine like even 24 hours without internet. We feel like, okay, a lot of people might have messaged me. I need to check my emails. Let me see what's happening. Because that's the de facto way we access information, or we get to know what's happening in the world around us. And when we're using that internet, what is internet? It's full of data, right? It's full of data. It's full of information. As data is getting more and more valuable, data is essentially, in simple words, you can say is the new oil, right? So as internet is getting more and more penetration or adoption, blockchain will also complement that. Blockchain is actually making that data secure. So you will continue to use internet. You will also have blockchain, an integral part of the applications that you use currently. For example, if you're using any application, blockchain will be a part of it. You might not be seeing blockchain on a day-to-day basis. That it is the core part of it. For example, it is there at the background. For example, right now you browse google.com, you don't know what TCP/IP protocol is, you don't know what HTTPS is, you don't know what HTTP is, but you still use internet. What matters to the end customer is, okay, I want to go to a website and the website loads. That is what I care about. But how fast the website loads. For example, if you're opening a website, google.com, right now it takes maybe 3 seconds. Imagine a world where it takes like 5 seconds, 5 milliseconds, or maybe 10 milliseconds. Blockchain can make that super fast. So you might not be seeing blockchain, but it is there in the background. It is there in the infrastructure level. So that is about the adoption of blockchain technology. All the applications that we will interact with will have some component depending upon what application we are interacting with, and the value addition that blockchain gives there. When it comes to crypto, I think crypto is a token, right? Crypto is a token which there are two parts to it, like the utility part of it. For example, if you're using a utility token which has value within the network, and then you will be using crypto, right, that particular token, to access that network. That's one thing. And a lot of people also use it to invest, just like a lot of people are using it right now. So that's also one part of it. I'm not very sure how many people will use crypto as investment. Of course, the number is growing pretty insanely fast. A lot of people want to invest in crypto because of the sheer potential that people see in it. Then there's also a blockchain technology part of it, which we have already discussed. And then there's also a utility part of it, where you will be using those tokens in your day-to-day basis, or whenever, just like how we use Chroma points within the Chroma zone, or we use loyalty points. Similarly, you will use some of the crypto tokens within that network. So there are multiple streams where it will go over time, but every single one of them will have adoption, and it will come through various frictions, various challenges along the way. Many might fail. A lot of, like, for example, during the .com era also, not every website that was built that time is currently present, right?
Yahoo is a
few
big
companies like Amazon. Yes, yeah. So similarly, you will also see a lot of failures, but you will also see some big successes in this space.
So that kind of summarizes the entire concept that you're saying about the evolution of cryptocurrency. It is still in a very nascent stage, and there's a lot of evolution and a quick evolution that is happening. So with that evolution of cryptocurrency, previously it was considered to be a currency per se, but now it is being considered as an asset class. A lot of people say that it is a good investment option. You have stocks, you've got bonds, you've got real estate, might as well have some crypto if you've got some extra money to invest. Would you like to throw some light on how cryptocurrency is being considered as an asset class, and is it worthwhile buying and holding on to cryptos like we do with mutual fund shares and bonds and stuff like that?
I think it's published by various in various reports that crypto is a good asset class to have in a portfolio for better portfolio diversification. Let's say you have 100 rupees in your portfolio. It doesn't harm to keep 1% to 5% of that in crypto, simply because it is one of the best performing asset classes in the last decade. Right. So of course, there are various risks associated with it also, but depending upon your risk appetite, it is evident. A lot of people have shared research reports that if you keep 5% of a portfolio in crypto, right, then it is as good as keeping 25 or 30% of that in mutual fund or any other asset classes, because of the upside that it has. And 5% risk in the portfolio will give you, the risk is still limited to 5%, right? If you're keeping 5%, but the upside is also very high. So depending upon your risk appetite, depending upon, how much you would want to keep that, whether it is 0.1%, 1%, 5%. But a lot of people have started taking exposure into crypto simply because it's one of the best performing asset classes. Plus, it's a very good diversification tool which has less correlation with other investment tools. For example, real estate, right? Crypto has no correlation with real estate. Equity market is on one side, and then mutual funds are also linked with equity markets. So crypto again has a low correlation with that. Gold, low correlation with that. So it's a different new asset class, which is new, which is very promising, futuristic. So it is a good, it should be a part of your portfolio. And then depending upon the risk appetite, I would suggest to read a lot about it before anyone starts investing, right? Because a lot of people I have seen personally in my network, they start investing blindly in crypto, right? People
and a lot
would have
of
heard
cryptos
about
they say are fake cryptos, so they're all Ponzi schemes and stuff like that. People don't understand, so they invest and then they go burst and stuff.
Yeah, that is where education. I mean, I'm a strong proponent of crypto education, and for the same reason, we have a free learning platform called DCX Learn. Anyone in India or anywhere across the world can just start, reading and accessing information, whatever we have published. It's a very simple, small articles. There are videos also, very simple, easy to consume videos, which people can start viewing. I would suggest that if you want to try it out, of course, you can start with a smaller amount. Even 100 rupees is good enough for you to start. Again, like talking, so you can do that on any exchange in India if you want to buy with INR, Indian rupees. But start with a smaller amount and then read about it. I think that's a very important part to it. Investing blindly without understanding, what it does, I would not suggest that's a good idea. For example, a lot of people invest in cryptos without knowing what it does. And what it does is, like, if you don't understand about it, you might lose out your investment also. So education, I think, is a very, very important integral part of it. As you get more comfortable, as you get more aware about what it does, how it works, then based on that, you will have some more comfort and you will feel good. I think more the best returns you will get from this whole space is not just the monetary returns, but the knowledge that you will get out of that. I think that's far more valuable. And any person who is curious to know more about it should definitely start reading about it, because then you will anyway get help in investing, but also understand what is happening in the world. You will start seeing what the future holds for us, how will, like, next 3 years look like, how will next 5 years, and that feeling is something which is very powerful. And I think any person who is curious to read more about, any curious person should start at least giving 30 minutes to 1 hour and read about. There's a bunch of content out there on the internet. I think that's a good starting point, and then investment is just something that you can do in parallel along with that.
Of course. So, like, जैसे बोलते हैं, the eyes does not see what the mind does not know. In the same way, it is important that we know about cryptos more and then actually look at them as to how we should go ahead buying them, right?
Yes, exactly. And also there are a lot of, as you mentioned rightly, there are a lot of tokens also which are not very promising, and they do a lot of marketing, and it's very important for you to stay away from those things. And you'll start knowing that if you are closely involved, if you're a part of the space, and you understand it clearly.
All right. So we were wanting to take the questions at the last, but I've been getting a lot of questions relating to you in person.
I would like to ask first question.
Yeah, we are not going to the
Lekku.
questions. I'll give you the opportunity. But there is a question that is there that is speaking like anything that is not got to do anything with crypto. But you, Mr. Sumit, people are wanting to know your story. You are one of the most sought after crypto-based entrepreneur in India. If I'm not mistaken, your company does about 100 crore turnover on a daily basis of crypto trading, as I read somewhere on the internet. So how is it that when still people are wanting to understand what cryptocurrency is, and you become a macho in understanding the entire concept and you build a big company around it? Tell us your story. Where did you start? How is it that you landed up in the crypto world? And what are your plans for the future?
Sure. So I belong to a small town called Shivpuri in Madhya Pradesh. That's where my early days were like. And then after that, I always wanted to be in maths. I love mathematics, right? So it was very clear that I'll do, I'll choose PCM. And then later on, I joined IIT Bombay. I did my study in electrical engineering. Crypto was also one of the courses. I didn't realize that my life would go into the cryptography field at some point, but I just did that and I loved it. I loved that course. And after IIT Bombay, I joined Sony. So I joined Sony company, their headquarters in Tokyo. I worked there for a little more than a year. I heard about Bitcoin for the first time when I was in Japan. A lot of people feel that Bitcoin came from Japan because of the name Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yes.
Nobody knows what the truth is, but yeah, I mean, I heard about Bitcoin back then. But I did not. I was curious, right? I was curious. I wanted to know more about it, but then I just ignored it. I felt okay, kuch cheez hogi. Maybe I'll read it later on. I gave no attention to it. And then and even like that was my first job. I could have invested a lot of my money into Bitcoin that time because that was the first job and I had nowhere to spend. That was the first time I started investing. But I ignored it. If I would have started reading about, even like if I would have seen just one video then, or just one blog or even white paper, life would be totally different, right? So I did not do any research investing in 2014. Again, ignored it, and then continued with my job. 2016 is when, and I always wanted to do something of my own simply because I feel there's a lot more value creation that you can do. So
As an
I
entrepreneur,
moved
yes.
as an entrepreneur, and I love the problem solving part of it, to be honest, right? You give me any problem, whether like crypto, I don't know, right? I just been in the space for a long time and that's it. But anyone who has been in the space for a long time would also have that much experience and knowledge, right? So I just love problem solving. I felt that, okay, you are an engineer, you have learned how to crack exams, even if you start reading about it 48 hours before the exam. So you have learned a lot of different things. I felt that problem solving is something that I absolutely enjoy. And I really felt that, okay, I would want to spend my entrepreneurship journey in a space which is which is new. Didn't want to do any normal, something which
kind
is
of
not.
yeah.
So I came back to India, right? Did a venture of my own. First experience, learned a lot of things there. Did that for 1.5 years. It was profitable, going good, but then I came across crypto, and then that time 2016 is when I started reading about it. And then when I started reading about it, I did not stop, right? I mean, it's like 6-7 hours every day in the night from 9 p.m. till 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the night, 4 or 5 friends just talking about it, just simply talking about it, thinking from a very basic level that why do we value this paper money? Why do we value this note? How does diamond have value? वो diamond को value क्यों करता है? उसमें ऐसा क्या है value के लिए? Gold में इतनी value क्यों है? Right? And then right from the very basic questions, asking some of the trivial questions that we generally don't ask ourselves. So वो वहां से discussion चालू, and then it just continued, and then those series of discussions would have they just opened up your mind, right? And then reading about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then you realize that, okay, look, this is something which is revolutionary. Very rare chances that in my lifetime I'll get across any technology. For example, internet was one, but was born when I was born, so I no chance I would do something in that space.
Yes.
But this is one space which is going
Still
to be the future,
evolving.
and I was 100% convinced about it. And I felt, okay, there's a lot more to be done in this space. In India specifically, when we talk about investing, when I wanted to invest this, that was still very challenging. I felt, okay, I'm an engineer, I think I understand the space. There's a lot more value that can be added into the space, especially in India, right? So I will, and I'm very strong believer that India is going to of course right now things are a bit slower, but India is going to play a major role in terms of blockchain adoption, simply because of the 40 million developer base that India has. These people who are in the IT field, if they just start, even if 2% of them start coming into the blockchain space, it's going to take India to a next level altogether. So I felt that India definitely is a market which will be a major contributor in terms of taking the blockchain technology forward. And then crypto is a global phenomena. I think it's one space which I am very excited about. So I just jumped into it full time in 2016-17. We started building up the platform, put in like 80% of my savings, all the savings that I had, 85%, I just put in. It was very difficult to raise capital that time because people still didn't understand crypto, and it was looking like, okay, I don't know if it's legal tender or if it's legal to invest in Bitcoin. So it was like a bunch of questions around it. Then I felt that, okay, let me just jump into it. I'll have a big regret if I don't do it right at that point in time. And I already had a regret that in 2014 when I was in Japan, I did not do investment. So I felt, okay,
I guess we'll not repeat it now.
So I just like jumped into the space full time, and 2016, 17, 18, I was like full into crypto. 2018 is when we launched the platform. And again, like during the CoinDesk journey, there were tons of challenges, right? I cannot cover that in in the next few 1 hour, but I mean, there are tons of challenges that we had to face, and that was the part I enjoyed the most. In the life of in startup, I mean, everyone understands it's full of challenges, right? But solving the startup challenges, and then crypto, new space, regulations, legal, technology, hiring, fundraising, tons of challenges, and I absolutely enjoyed that. It was a great learning experience for me. Of course, you had a lot of tough times as well, but that also makes you stronger. So very enriching, very exciting journey. And here we are today. It's been like 3.5 years since we are running CoinDesk.
And I'm sure you must be feeling that you've just scratched the surface now, and there's so much more to do.
या अभी तो रेगुलेशन भी नहीं आया है रेगुलेशन आने के बाद तो स्पेस खुलेगा अभी तो रेगुलेशन भी नहीं आया है so I yeah absolutely I mean I just feel that we started like last week it feels like that it just happened so quickly and the space moves really fast it just moves like 5 times faster than any other space you have time here but कल कुछ न्यूज आ गई परसों you have to work on something else and then it's very
It's a roller
dynamic which is
coaster
another
ride.
exciting
Yeah.
part yeah and which is another exciting part of being in crypto.
Of course, like they say, like you are mentioning how India is the market and everything. वो बोलते हैं China is the factory of the world and India is the market to the world. So there's no reason why that you should choose to be at any other place than India, our very
Yeah.
own country, and absolutely so much potential, so much space to do so many things here. So Sumit, I have at least 100 more questions of my own, but I'll be too mean to kind of push those questions to you. And as I look to the clock, we have just 15 more minutes to go. So I will open the questions for the audience. I would ask the panelists if they have any to please go first, and then I'll take that time to kind of read some questions from the chat box and throw them at you, if that's okay.
Sure.
Hi,
Sure.
Sumit. This is Lekhu from Via Siliguri. So you
Hi,
just
Lekhu.
told that as I know that the market sentiments plays a pivotal role in the determination of prices, maybe of shares and maybe of the equity funds as well. So what factors come into play when it comes to bitcoins or maybe cryptocurrencies?
Sure. So in terms of crypto, right? I think the factors one is the news, right? It's also a lot of it is also speculation, right? In crypto, a lot of it is investing. So a lot of people hold it for a long time. In fact, the Coindeces Go app that we have, which is getting a lot of traction and a lot of people are loving experience. We have seen a lot of those people are also long-term investors. So they buy it and they hold it for a long time. There are also people who buy it and trade it frequently based on the news. So there are a lot of news that comes up. China में ये हुआ है, Coinbase ने ये token list किया है. This is the partnership that happened between Project A and this company. So there are various factors in play which affects the pricing. Of course, I mean, even I don't know all of that. I don't know how the price moves. That would be a superpower, but like, well, basically market forces defining the price of it. Various people, depending upon whether it is a buy pressure or a sell pressure, just like how it happens in the equity market. It's typically that the difference being it's a 24/7 market. Even at 3 a.m. in the night, you can still refresh your portfolio and see how your portfolio is doing. The second thing is it's a global market, right? Whatever happens in US will also affect Bitcoin prices in India because it's all connected. It's a global asset class. And then it also, I mean, in the stock market, it's very country specific. Stock market, like the SDFC token will be mostly traded in Indian, among Indian customer base, but Bitcoin is not limited just to India. It is like global forces playing, and determining the price of it. US regulating it, El Salvador making it a legal tender will also change the price by 5-10%. So there are various factors at play, and it will keep on evolving over time. Governments regulating it will also play a big factor. Big institutions like MicroStrategy, PayPal, Square investing in it will have a impact on the pricing. So I mean, no single answer to it, but various factors at play which determines the price.
So we have one more interesting question. Dipesh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, Dipesh.
Right. Thank you. So I basically have one question which is divided in two parts. One is general, one is specific to one particular Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, which is Bitcoin. So one of the questions is that some people, or even most people, and myself included, I'm an investor in CoinDCX. We tend to feel that sometimes cryptocurrency is a joke because Elon Musk makes a coin called Dogecoin, and he tweets about it, and that the value goes up. Then again, he tweets, I think just 2 days ago, he tweeted something about the baby Dogecoin, which is inspired by the baby shark doo that campaign. And again, the value goes up. So how do we really trust? Like, do we all keep our hopes to Elon Musk and hopes he tweets for a particular cryptocurrency, and then we start investing in it? And the second one is related to Bitcoin. The value of the intrinsic value of all cryptocurrency, Bitcoin included, is zero. Like, how can we trust that value? Because when we talk about fiat currency, we have gold reserves. So like there's a gold which is backing the value of that piece of paper. Same thing with the Indian national rupee that we have. So how do we trust that value as investors in a crypto world?
Excellent questions, Dipesh. Talking about the first part, right, where you mentioned about coins like Dogecoin or Elon Musk tweeting about it, I think, again, I'm no one to comment on that thing, but I will, the answer to that, like, for example, I am in this space for a long time, right? The answer to that is the research. If you start reading about what Dogecoin does or what maybe Dogecoin is, you will understand whether it's a joke or not, whether you should invest in it or not, right? Rather than just blindly trusting what is being tweeted or what people are talking about, because and that is where research comes into picture. That is where your understanding about it comes into picture. For example, all of that doesn't bother me, right? Because I'm curious about, you know, what goes in the background, right? What is happening? Why you, so the moment you start reading about it, you'll understand, you know, where does the value come from, right? And that is the key skill set that you would want to have. And I'm not talking about that point particularly, for example, because a lot of people you know, invest in it blindly, which is not a good idea, which is not at all a good idea. The moment you start reading about it, you'll understand whether you should invest or not. It's not a rocket science. It's not rocket science. It's just a matter of understanding. And if people want to keep a faith on, it's essentially, it's like saying that, okay, my friend B has invested in this stock, I will also blindly just put money in that stock. You know, even stock market, that's not applicable. Crypto is a different piece altogether. So in crypto, definitely research plays 10x more role, importance than in other markets, because it's a new, and you will have because the space is new, right? In every industry which is new, you will always have some of these uh, so-called lucrative opportunities, but it's important for you to understand it, right? And invest only in the long-term, you know, things which are having a long-term potential, right? If you ask me, like Bitcoin, of course, people can say Bitcoin has this, but there are other people also will say, okay, Bitcoin, I would invest in because it has this long-term potential, right? So it should come from your side. You should do your research, and then you should have a conviction, because when you have a conviction, no matter if India does something bad tomorrow, you will still be convinced, right? And then you will hold on for it. People who had conviction in 2012 are the one, and who have still conviction are the one who made maximum wealth. Otherwise, you would have sold in 2014, and then you have bought it again in 15, and then sold in 2016. So conviction plays a very important role here. And conviction comes from study, from research. I think that is very important. Of course, in this space, there are various tokens which are not, which are not having a very long-term potential. And it is important for all of us to understand it. Not every stock gives returns, right? So that is where, and I'm no one to comment on which token to buy, which token not to buy. It is up to the individuals and up to the investors to at least do some basic research and see if that token is worth investing or not, no matter what people talk about it. That is the first point. The second point you mentioned about Bitcoin, right? That gold, and you mentioned one point that fiat currency is backed by gold. I would like to highlight that fiat currency is no longer backed by gold. The INR that we have, the US dollar we have, is not backed by gold anymore. It was until the 1973 that it was
Countries are
backed
free
by
to
gold
print their
reserves.
own currencies nowadays.
Now
Yeah.
countries are free to print their own money. And now let me ask you this question: given this information, what is the underlying value of that dollar note? Uh, okay, keeping that aside, what is the underlying value of a gold? The gold that we have, we like 40-50 lakh rupees ka ek, 1 kg gold you will get for 40-50 lakhs. What is the underlying value in gold? It is the long history. It is the network effect. It is the value that if I have 1 kg of gold tomorrow, 100 grams of gold tomorrow, I'll go to someone, and then that person will give me INR, or that person will give me fiat currency in exchange of that. Even gold is not a legal tender as of today. It is not, right? So gold also has a value because of the network effect it has, and it has a very long history. A lot of people say gold has a value because you can wear it, but you can wear any other metal also. That doesn't give it value. The value is when when the other person realizes the value in it. When two people or lakhs of people or millions of people in the world start seeing the value in that, whether it is gold or silver or any other token for that, any other metal for that matter. It all depends on the value that the network gives. Bitcoin, if you have seen the example, the number of unique wallets that holds Bitcoin, the graph is like this. The number of unique wallets which has Bitcoin and which people are not selling, again the graph is going up. And it is not me telling it. It is all in the ledger. It is all in because it's all on public ledger, right? You can very well see the data. the number of people who are using Ethereum as a technology. You can see the graph. So the data itself saying that the belief of people in Bitcoin, right? It is going exponentially. It is rising exponentially. That is what gives it value, right? And same thing you can see for any other metal. I think the data, sees everything. So and if you also ask yourself this question, how does diamond get its value? So you will naturally have answers. I think the underlying value in Bitcoin it's a very good store of value, which is fundamentally supply constraint. Like you cannot have more than 21 million Bitcoins ever, right? So the supply is capped. The demand depends upon the value that the network gives it. The network effects are also growing stronger over time. Governments are regulating it. That is what gives its value. Hope I answer your question.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so we have a couple of questions, Sumit, from some of our attendees here. Like Samit, when we're talking about value, Samit has got a very important question. He says that a lot of the currencies are backed by something at the back end. Of course, it is not gold that we understand now, but there is, and also we understand there's the trust component involved here. The entire crypto, and as a matter of fact, any other currency works on trust. That how much trust do we have in that particular class? Where does crypto get its value from? That is number one. Number two, is there unlimited cryptos? There's another question that is there in the chat box from one of the attendees talking about, is there unlimited cryptos or is there some scarcity of cryptos? Which again boils down to the question about crypto mining. So I think that has got to do, it's a connected question about crypto mining, meaning to say, can there be unlimited number of cryptos and how do they derive their value stock? So that kind of answers 3-4 questions that the attendees have posted in. Could you take that one, please?
So I captured 3 questions in your. So first question was about fiat currencies being backed by gold. So I think we have already covered part of it in Dipesh's question. Now talking about the fiat currency, right? Fiat currency also has governments printing it, and of course it would go. So it was about the trust, right? So right now we value our fiat currency, which is INR, the $100 note, 100 rupee note or a 2000 rupee note, because we trust the government. The government, it's a legal tender, and government will give us, that value, and it is all backed by the government now. What we have seen that also in the past is that government have also failed. There was hyperinflation. Yeah, the 2000 rupees note, if you are able to get let's say 10 kgs of rice, in future you might get 1 kg of rice. So the value is going down over time. I'm not saying that the crypto is a competitor to fiat currency. It's a store of value that, okay, you cannot you have, let's say 10 lakh rupees. You might not want to keep all of that in normal Indian rupees. You might want to park some of that in gold, some of that in crypto, or some of that in Bitcoin for that matter. Why? Because fiat currencies, you trust the government, right? But what if, in the start of the conversation, there was a video which mentions what if, right? So what if, so there can be any possibility, right? So that is where it's important for you to diversify. And Bitcoin particularly, the value is derived from the communities. The value is derived from the network effect, right? No matter what happens in the world, no matter, as long as you and I believe in the value of it, that will have value. Bitcoin will have value. It's a trustless system. You don't necessarily need to put in trust in one single individual. In fiat currency, in INR, you're putting trust on government, right? On central bank. But in crypto, you're not putting trust on one person or an institution. It's a decentralized. It's difficult, and it's like some people call it trustless network. You don't necessarily need to trust anyone. You trust the network, you trust the community, right? You trust the network effect. So that is where it gets its value from. And that's also a very powerful thing, trust me, right? Lot of things have gained value because of that trust, or because of that network effect that it has. So that is, I think, the first part. The second part, which was, can you remind me what the second question was?
Yeah, the mining of coins.
Yeah, second question was, can there be unlimited cryptos? There is just one Bitcoin, and there will be just one Bitcoin with a capped supply of 21 million, right?
Okay.
But there can be unlimited cryptos. There can be Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, IOTA, Basic Attention Token, Polkadot, Atom. You can have thousands of cryptos like this, or lakhs, or even millions. There is no restriction on that. You can create that, right? So and you can define how you would want to mint that. So that is a little more technical, but technically speaking, just like you can create infinite websites on internet, similarly you can create infinite tokens on
Open source,
blockchain.
yeah. It's an open
Open
source.
source.
Yeah.
Yes, it's open source. And about the mining, so there are various techniques, right? Bitcoin mining happens through proof of work. That's a different mechanism, consensus mechanism altogether. Ethereum is not of stake. So there are different mining mechanisms. The person who is or the institution who is launching the token can define how they would want the token to be minted.
Okay, so we are almost on time, but we have 3 more questions to go. If you are okay, Mr. Sumit, we'll take those last three questions.
We can quickly
Yeah,
take.
Sure. So we've got one important pertinent question here from Blinston Fernandez. He talks about terrorism funding. Of course, this is government is coming as a crackdown to a lot of things. They face problems in the currency exchange. If it is cross-border, it becomes even more difficult for any illegal activities. But given the fact that crypto is so smooth in its operations, at least Bitcoins, can this not lead to terrorism funding and fuel more funding in terrorism?
Sure. So there was one report that I was reading, and which mentions, and it is all data, right? It is all data which is public. The current terrorist funding that is happening is multiple times higher in fiat economy that happens with our current traditional fiat channels, right? That is one part. Second part is Bitcoin or blockchain, because it is on running on internet and it's very transparent, right? Any movement of value or any movement of funds in the system, you can see where it and there are tools now which tracks it right from the Genesis block. You can see how the money flowed within the internet or within the blockchain. So all of that is traceable now. That is now, to answer the question, I think that is where government needs to, there are various techniques also, like example, Travelure is one example where you link any address with an individual, right? And you do KYC. Example, in CoinDeces, we do AML and KYC checks, very stringent checks, so that whenever something like that happens, we know the individual, right? And we provide that information to the government whenever they ask for it, right? So that is how industry as a whole is together planning to, because see, every technology or even when internet was born, there was wrong, there could be bad things that could happen on internet, right?
Of course.
It is the regulations, it is the guidelines that you build, that you bring in, which stops the bad actor from
coming at play,
doing anything. Yeah. So that same thing comes at crypto also. There are, of course, it just makes the global money movement smoother, but that is something which can be controlled by putting a very strong checks on the entry and exit. Whenever someone buys crypto, you can put a very strong control there. Whenever someone sells it, you can put a very strong control there. And then within the system, you can completely trace the movement of Bitcoin. Kahan se kaise gaya, address 1 se address 2 gaya, address 2 se address 3 gaya. All of that is already public. So you can build all those solutions on top
so
of
if you see it from that sense, it is even more secure कि आप कम से कम trace कर सकते हो कि कहाँ से start हुआ और कहाँ खत्म हुआ.
Yes.
Fiat currencies में, of course, there is no linkage.
Fiat currency में, it's a paper money. मैंने आपको, there is no way you can track that.
Of course, yes.
Right.
Yes.
And at least it is, because it is on a public ledger, you can at least track it. Of course, there would be some rules or guidelines that needs to be implemented, where regulations will also play a very critical role there. But the system is more traceable than the fiat system.
Okay. The next question is a very tricky one. Make sure you think about it and answer, Sumit. This is from a housewife. So Priyanka asks, I am a housewife and I have some hard-earned money or hard-saved money, and I have an option to invest either in gold or in cryptos after listening to Mr. Sumit Gupta. So she would want to know from you, should she go ahead and buy some gold or should she invest in cryptocurrencies?
See, I will not give any financial advice, but I would suggest, I know that's a very tricky question, but I would suggest you to, I would suggest Priyanka to just read up about it. And then, fundamental thing is you need to diversify, right? So there is no clear answer that you need to, put in asset A or asset B. I think diversification is a better strategy overall. So do the research, and based on how much confidence you get, right? Accordingly, you put it across those two, because it's never a good idea to put all the eggs in one basket.
Maybe
So,
have good of both the worlds. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we are also live on Facebook through our Young Indians Siliguri Facebook handle or channel, as we say it. So we've got a question on Facebook which talks about the liquidity. So how about the liquidity of crypto unlike other investments? Is it like shares?
Sure.
Like
Very, very interesting question. So the comparison here is that if you're buying shares from any broker in India, you will have a T+1 or T+2 delivery. You buy shares today, the actual settlement happens after 2 days, right? In crypto, it's more or less real-time settlement. So if you want to invest, you can start with 100 rupees also. You do a UPI payment, you will get your wallet credited with 100 rupees, and then you can start buying Bitcoin as low as 10 rupees on our platform. And liquidity, I think it's much more better than other assets or stocks also, if you compare it with the stock markets. Reason being that right now overall 100 million plus is the trading volume. Much higher than that is just on Bitcoin alone. So you can buy or sell worth millions of dollars without any problem. There won't be much slippage.
Right.
So that is also very strong there in terms of buying and selling. You can buy immediately. You can buy Bitcoin in a matter of 60 seconds using the app. You can sell it. For example, if you have 100 rupees worth of Bitcoin, you sell it, you will immediately get that credited to your bank account. So you don't have to wait. But in stock market, you will have to wait for 2 days to get the money in your bank account. But here it's more or less real time, which is even more convenient.
So are you so convinced with your ideas about Bitcoin, and so much so the concept that you are sharing here? Okay, the last question we'll take, and sincere apologies to so many questions that we are receiving on our chat box, but this has to be the last one given the paucity of time. The question is an interesting one. This has come from our Facebook handle again. Why is there a slight difference in the rate of crypto at Indian platforms?
Good question. And a lot of people ask this. What people do is people search for Bitcoin price in INR on Google, and they see rates as 25 lakhs, and they go to an Indian exchange, they see 26 lakhs. Why is that the case? Our Indian platform charging a premium. So I think the answer is that India is broadly a demand heavy market. There's a lot of demand, but mining doesn't happen in India. You will not have any mining companies operating out of India who are doing the supply. So less supply, more demand is resulting in a premium. Generally, the premium varies between 2 to 5%, and I think that is typically the case. Like even if you buy gold in Dubai versus gold in India, there's a difference. There is an arbitrage. Similarly, same thing happens with crypto. So you will see a little bit increase in prices when you're buying crypto from Indian platform.
Okay, so before we close for today and have the official vote of thanks, would you want to talk a little bit about CoinDCX, because we are also having a lot of interest coming in from our participants, those who are wanting to invest in crypto, wanting to understand more about your company, that is CoinDCX, and how is it that they can invest in crypto through your company?
Sure. So CoinDCX is essentially India's simplest way to buy, sell, and invest in crypto. All you need to do is install our CoinDCX Go app and create an account, do your KYC. In KYC, you just need to put your PAN card, Aadhaar card, and then you can start investing with as low as 100 rupees. So good thing is that we have very selected tokens listed, as we talked about during the session, that there are 10,000 plus or 5,000 plus crypto assets. Not everything is good. So we have our checks in place. We have a 7M framework. Based on those parameters, we selectively identify and curate and list only the credible top quality tokens and list them on the Go app. The minimum amount is also 10 rupees. So you can buy those cryptos with 10 rupees also. And the app is pretty simple and easy to use. We have BitGo Insurance as well, which is our custodian. And of course, for advanced traders, we do have spot, margin, futures, all of that you can access by going to coindcx.com website and can start trading quickly.
All right. So Dipesh here is already a CoinDCX fan and customer to your company, and everybody who is wanting to join the bandwagon of the cryptocurrency world might as well join CoinDCX and obviously spend time on. So Lekhu is already convinced, I think, after the 1 hour.
No. So I just have a small question, because Sumit, since you told that you will be taking a PAN as well as the Aadhaar card of the maybe investor. So what tax implications are there? Because if PAN in the current scenario, the PAN and Aadhaar are linked. So I just want to know, if I am investing in Bitcoin through CoinDCX, what are tax implications?
So you have to pay taxes. I think the tax guidelines are not very clearly defined from the government side,
Yeah.
but you can pay short-term capital gains or long-term capital gains depending upon the duration for which you are holding the assets.
Okay, thank you.
So that brings us to the end of the roller coaster ride of the 1 hour that we've had with the Mr. Sumit Gupta from CoinDCX. Thank you so much. For the official vote of thanks, may I invite Mr. Rohit Tiwari, the co-chair for YI Siliguri, to please propose the vote of thanks.
Good evening, friends. I would like to thank Mr. Sumit Gupta, co-founder and CEO of CoinDCX, one of India's largest crypto exchange, for such an amazing session. It was really interesting and exciting, and I'm sure we all will apply these words of wisdom for future. I would also like to thank the CoinDCX team, the learning team of YI Siliguri, and Sumit for wonderfully moderating, and all the participants for participating in today's webinar. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Sumit. We would
Sumit,
love to
and-
have you physically in one of. Yeah, Leku, please go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Please go ahead.
Okay, so although we are bounded by the COVID that we have doing the rounds with the first wave, second wave, and we don't know whether the third wave is going to come or not, but we would definitely love to have you here in Siliguri at a time that is convenient to you, and if it coincides with one of our events. And we are sure that you will love it in the hills in North Bengal. So that is an official invitation that we would like to extend to you and your team. Of
For
course.
the invitation, would love to be part of your events. We'll keep you posted whenever I have
Sure.
any time.
We definitely will. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Signing off.
Sumit. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.